Hi everyone, thanks for joining me here today at the Growth Mentor Summit. I'm going to talk about growth without a growth team, about how marketing teams can implement a growth process in their companies to accelerate results, even if your company doesn't have an individual growth team yet. So let me give you a little bit of background about me. My name is Hale Schneider, and I'm the head of growth marketing at Growth Hackers. And some of the things that my team and I are responsible for is the acquisition of new users for our main software products, which is Experiments and Workflow, and also acquisition for new users in the Growth Hackers community. And the Growth Hackers community is the largest online community of growth professionals in the world, and we have about 500,000 users on the site. And we have the software solutions for those users, which is Experiments and Workflow. And also, I'm a mentor at Growth Mentor, and I joined this year. So I'm really glad to be here with you guys today. And what I'm going to share with you here is first I'm going to talk a little bit about the new marketing team. What are some changes we've seen in marketing teams over the years? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about growth hacking and what it is and what it isn't. Then I'm going to get into what a growth process actually looks like. And then I'll give you a step-by-step playbook on how to implement this in your company, even if you don't have a growth team yet. And then I'm going to end with some ideas to get you started. And before I jump into it, I just want to let you know that we do have a software platform at Growth Hackers that allows teams to manage the whole experiment and growth process. So if you want to check it out, you can go to this website, growthhackers.com/experiments. And we usually offer a 14-day trial, but for people here at the Growth Mentor Summit, I'm going to extend this to a 30-day trial. So if you go to this link, or if you click on the link on the Growth Mentor Summit page, you can sign up for an Experiments trial. And again, it'll be a 30-day trial for people that are here today. Usually it's only 14 days. So if you want to take advantage of that and put into process what I talk about today, go for it. Just go to that link. So let's jump into it and talk about the new marketing team. And what are some things we've seen change in terms of team structures over the years? The main takeaway of new marketing teams is the end of silos. So when we think of a company that has a traditional structure, these traditional structures usually incentivize team members to work in an isolated way. And the marketing team is usually held responsible for all growth in the company. Now, more and more, we're seeing fast growth companies implement a new structure where these growth structures are unifying all metrics across the entire company, and all team members and all teams are going in the same direction. So without these silos, the whole company is responsible for growth, not just the marketing team. So here you can see an example of what happens when we take our silo mentality a little too far. We can see we have this team over here that has created a fortress, that has built a moat, has alligators protecting it. That's what happens when the silo mentality gets out of hand. So when we're putting in a new fast growth structure, we want to avoid this silo mentality completely. So I went on LinkedIn and I found some people from some companies here. And we have people from the Coca-Cola company, Kellogg's, and Hershey's. But I want you to look at what their job titles are. So here we have the Chief Growth Officer at Coca-Cola, the Chief Global Growth Officer at Kellogg's, and the Director of Disruptive Growth at Hershey's. Isn't that a dream job? Like disruptive growth in chocolate. Sign me up. So what I want to point out here is that these new fast growth structures aren't just being found in tech companies. It's not just something for startups. These fast growth structures are being implemented in huge companies that have been around for hundreds of years. And it's not just tech. These are food companies here. Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, and Hershey's. These are all food companies. So the process that I'm going to describe here today can work at any company. We can think of it like this picture here of a big cruise ship and then a small speedboat. So these large companies with the traditional structures, they may be big and strong, but they're moving slowly and it's very difficult for them to react and change course quickly. Whereas a fast growth structure is more like this speedboat. It's moving along quickly and it can quickly change course, responding to new market conditions, responding to a new competitive landscape. And this is just a metaphor for what it's like to implement the new growth structure. So when we think of a growth team at a company, usually it's a cross-functional team. It can be someone from product, someone from marketing, engineering, data, customer success, human resources. But one of the main aspects of it is that these teams aren't focusing on just one growth lever. They usually look at the growth levers across the funnel. So from acquisition to activation to referral, retention, revenue. They're looking at growth everywhere. So I'm going to show just a few quick team structures that you might see at a company, or maybe you have it structured in your company. If we have an independent growth team, it can be something like a growth product manager, and underneath there's a growth marketer, growth engineer, growth data analyst, growth designer. Or we can also see the cross-functional team structure, where we have the individual areas in a company, like engineering, marketing, product, and sales, but within each of those, we have someone responsible for growth. And those people in each team form this cross-functional growth team that still sits within the traditional areas. You can also see a mixed team structure where you have a VP of growth with people under them, and then also the individual areas with someone responsible for growth. The takeaway here is that there is not one size fits all answer for teams or for companies. This is really an individual structure that each company needs to create the structure that works best. So if you don't have a growth team or growth structure, this is just for thinking ahead for how you would structure it in the future. The main idea is that we're building bridges across the areas. We're ending these silo areas and bringing people together so everyone has a unified metric and is working towards the same goals. Now, what is growth hacking? I'm sure a lot of you have heard this term before, and probably you have an opinion about what it means. And one of the challenges with this term is that if you ask 10 people, they might have 10 different answers about what is growth hacking. So I want to share with you the definition we use at Growth Hackers. And maybe this is the same definition that you have, maybe it's a little different, but when I talk about growth hacking today, this is what I'm referring to, and this is what we use at Growth Hackers to describe the process, and when we teach our clients the process, this is what it is. But before we get into what it exactly is, I want to look at what it's not. So growth hacking is not a silver bullet. It's not a magical answer to marketing problems or product problems. It's not going to just fix everything if things are wrong at your company. And growth hacking is not executing any and all new ideas. So if you just have an idea and experimenting, that's not necessarily growth hacking. Growth hacking is not cheating or black hat techniques. And it's not a synonym for marketing. It's not just a new term we used for marketing. And growth hacking is not the solution to product problems. If you don't have product market fit yet, this growth process isn't going to help you. And growth hacking is not just marketing that requires coding. So what is it? It is a continuous process. And growth hacking can be done by any team, including your marketing team. Growth hacking is hard work and continuous learning. Growth hacking is having a culture focused on experimentation. So it's just as much about the culture as it is about the techniques. And growth hacking is connected to product, marketing, and sales. And growth hacking can include coding or not. It doesn't have to. So let's see what the founder of Growth Hackers has to say. This is directly from Sean Ellis, the person who coined the term growth hacking and the founder of Growth Hackers. He says, growth hacking differs from traditional marketing by creating a culture of experimentation that involves the entire company moving quantitative and qualitative metrics. There you have it, right from the horse's mouth. This is how growth hacking and traditional marketing differ. So when I talk about growth hacking or implementing a growth process, what exactly does that look like? And here we have a diagram of what the growth process is. It's a scientific process for continuous improvement in learning. Now let's go through the 4 steps, and then I'm going to give you a way to implement this in practice. So you start by analyzing to find a high leverage objective, like what is the objective for your company or for your team. And then you go into generating ideas around that objective. And once you have a backlog of ideas, you then prioritize those ideas. And the ones you prioritize, you run tests, you do experiments on those ideas, and then you analyze your experiments. So it's a continuous loop. It goes analyze, create ideas, prioritize, and test. Then analyze, create new ideas, prioritize, and test. And it's a continuous circle. So let's look at how you can implement this process in your marketing team. So this is a step-by-step. And this is the exact process we use at Growth Hackers, and this is what we teach to our clients. So follow along. You can also follow along in the experiment software that I gave a link to earlier, or you can look at it later. What we do at the beginning is we establish a data-focused meeting. This is called a growth meeting. And every time we do this meeting, we start with our learnings and look at what worked and what did not work. So if it's your first time running the meeting, you're not going to have the learnings, so you'll be starting with some new ideas. But this is a weekly meeting for our team. We do it every Friday afternoon. So it's important to establish a cadence, and we recommend weekly, to run this meeting. And when we look at the ideas that we've brought to this meeting, we want to look at, when we're evaluating the ideas, we want to know like how this idea or this piece will help us reach our North Star metric. And I'll explain the North Star metric in a minute. And we want to know what will the impact be and how we will measure that impact. Then we ask, how confident are we that this experiment will be successful? And also, how easy is it to produce? So if we're coming up with a marketing idea, it could be a new ad campaign on LinkedIn or something. So we'd want to look at that idea and then ask these questions about it. All right, so I talked a little bit about the North Star metric, so I want to get into some detail about what that is, because this whole growth process that we're talking about today relies on having a North Star metric for your company. Now, it's the metric that matters, and it's a North Star metric is how you quantify the expansion of value that is delivered to your customers. So let's look at some examples here. We have Facebook, and everyone's heard of Facebook. What's the value that Facebook gives? The value is like you see your friends' updates, you know what's happening in your friends' lives. So Facebook's North Star metric would be daily active users, because the higher the daily active users is, the more value you're getting by seeing your friends, you're seeing your colleagues, and knowing what's happening. So that would be Facebook's North Star metric. And also Uber. Everyone knows Uber also. So what's the value of Uber? For Uber drivers, it's earning money. And for riders, it's getting a ride that's usually cheaper than a taxi. So what would be the North Star metric there? Well, weekly rides. Because that number, the number of rides, shows the value for the drivers and for the passengers. So what would the North Star metric at your company be? Try to think of some ideas for this. This is something you want to discuss with the whole team, but remember, you want to avoid vanity metrics. So a North Star metric isn't going to be something like downloads of an ebook or registrations, Because although those are important metrics to follow, you want to see if that's successful, that doesn't really explain the value your customers are receiving. So look at what is the end value your clients are receiving and build a metric around that. So once you have a North Star metric set up, then you're going to set your goals for the period. Now we work in the quarterly goals or quarterly objectives. And that's very typical to do a quarterly structure at a company. Maybe your company looks at things longer term for 6 months, but once you have the North Star metric, you're going to use your data and qualitative research to figure out what are the opportunities for growth in this quarter or this period. And deciding this is really going to help your team set up the macro focus of the team for that period. And so when you're deciding this, you want to look what areas are going to most impact the North Star metric. Now comes the fun part of the growth process. I mean, it's all fun, but this is one of my favorites. It's creating the idea backlog. So you have your North Star metric, you have your objectives for the period, it could be the month, the quarter. Now we need to start thinking of ideas that we want to experiment with. Now, this is something that if you're able to, you want to incentivize your entire company to get involved. Now, if you're a marketing team without a growth team at the company, maybe you'll have to start just in your team. But if you can expand it and get ideas from other people, it's even better because the burden of creating this idea backlog can fall on everyone. It's not just the marketing team. And then people can feel ownership and responsibility for the growth. But again, if you're just beginning and you don't have an established growth team, or maybe your company doesn't yet have this culture of growth and experimentation, you'll get to start just within your marketing team, but that's okay. You just want to start. That's the main important part. Now that you have your backlog of ideas, where do you start with that? Because by this time you could have hundreds of ideas from your team about ways to hit your objectives and increase the North Star metric, but you can't do all of them. You can't experiment everywhere. So we have something called an ICE score that we follow. And an ICE score, it's just an acronym for impact, confidence, and ease. So every idea that we get, or every idea that someone from the team brings, we'll give it a score. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much impact will this have on our North Star metric? 1 being not much impact, 10 being extreme impact. Then confidence. How confident are we that it will be successful? Like 1, we don't think it will be successful, and 10, we're completely sure that this will be successful. And then ease. How easy is it to implement this experiment? 1 being difficult, not easy, and 10 being extremely easy. We can set it up very quickly. Now, once you have the average of these 3 scores, that's your ICE score. And you want to prioritize what you do next, what you experiment with based on this score. Now, the leaders on your team, they're going to be the ones responsible for nominating and deciding which ideas you move forward with. So everyone is welcome to create ideas, but when it comes down to it, someone needs to take the responsibility to say, yes, this is the one we'll move forward with. This is what we're going to include on our sprint next week, or something like that. Now, when you're running this weekly growth meeting, or however often you have it, it's important to do a few things each meeting. So first, you're going to be analyzing the results of previous experiments in previous sprints, and you're going to be adding those learnings to your database. So that's how you want to start with. Let's see, where are we on our objectives? What worked and didn't work from previous experiments? And then it's time to pitch the new ideas. So whoever came up with an idea gets a chance to share why they came up with this idea, what they think it will accomplish. And then it's a time to discuss. People can ask questions about the idea. And then you decide which ideas you'll move forward with. And you don't want to leave the meeting without assigning the experiment to someone, because the next week they're going to go in their sprint and start it. So every idea that's accepted and moved forward needs to have an owner. And then you go out and you test. You're going to run the tests on the experiments. So what we typically do is have our growth meeting on Friday, and then Monday we start the sprints. And some of the experiments will take longer than a week, so we won't have the results by the next growth meeting, but some experiments we can do in a week, and then the next Friday we're able to share our results right away. Now I want to talk a little bit about gathering the learnings. When you get results from your experiments, it's so important to keep track of the results, because as your team grows and your experiments evolve, things are going to get more and more complex. And you're going to want to have a place where you can reference all of the results. This knowledge base is going to be so valuable, because you don't want to do experiments twice. So if someone joins your team, new person joins your team, and they propose an experiment, you can say, oh, we already did that last year. But they'll be able to know because they can search for that in your database ahead of time. So this is so important for preventing duplicate work. And also, as the knowledge base grows, your experiments can get more and more complex. So it's very important that you track the results and track the learnings of the experiments. So as someone on a marketing team, what are some ideas you can come up with to present at your next growth meeting? So I want to give you a few ideas to start brainstorming here. When you're looking for new marketing ideas, you can start with your customers. Like, what are your customers asking you? What problems are they having? This is a great place to come up with new campaigns or new content. Also, your competitors. What is your competition doing? What sort of marketing campaigns are they running? What are they doing on social media? And what's working? What's something that you can not copy, but emulate, do something similar? Also, social media is a great place to come up with new marketing ideas from people who follow you and your company, or people that you follow. Also, trending posts on forums. For instance, on Growth Hackers, people can upvote content. So you're always able to see what people are looking at or talking about. And this is a great way to find out something that's really in the moment, some content that's in the moment, and you can create something similar or create a campaign around it. And also the industry-specific hashtags on social media. And another place is conference event topics. So in this Growth Mentor Summit right now, what are the topics that some other mentors are talking about? And what sort of marketing ideas can you come up with based on what you're seeing here in this Growth Mentor Summit today? Also, newsletters and product usage data. So if you have a platform product, are you tracking how people are using the product? Based on that usage, you can come up with some ideas for marketing to them or marketing to other people based on that usage. And then finally, review sites like Yelp or TripAdvisor. What are people asking? What are people talking about? And you can come up with a lot of ideas for marketing campaigns or new content ideas for content marketing. There's a lot of places to start to create this idea backlog. But the main thing is that you get started. So when you meet with your marketing team tomorrow or whenever, I want you to propose this idea to get an idea backlog started. And once you do that, you guys, that's the main step. Then you can prioritize the ideas and get started on the experiments. And I want to share again our experiment software, which you can sign up for a 30-day trial at growthhackers.com/experiments. Now, this software is what we use to manage our entire growth process, and it's what our clients use, and you can check it out. Also, if you have any questions or have any comments, message me. My email is hale@growthhackers.com, And I'd love to hear about how you're implementing this process in your marketing team and what you guys are doing. So email me and let me know about the experiments. Thanks again for joining me here today at the Growth Mentor Summit. It was a real pleasure, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.